Good evening, everyone. This is Tabassum Sheikh, an optometry student of National Academy of Medical Science, Bir Hospital, Nepal. I am your mediator for today's session, and you are watching this session live on YouTube. On behalf of Mero Eye Foundation, I welcome all to you Mero Eye e-learning session. This is Tabassum Sheikh, an Mero Eye e-learning session. Mero Eye Foundation is an organization which provides us a platform where we discuss various optometry topics through e-learning sessions. And if you have any queries or suggestions regarding Mero Eye Foundation, you can mail us. Mero Eye team would be happy to answer you all and accept your suggestions. As well, if you have any query regarding today's topic of discussion, you can write it down in comment section, which will be discussed at the end of the session. Also, I would like to request all the attendees to support us to make this session interactive. So without further delay, let's move towards our today's topic of discussion. And our today's topic of discussion is digital eye strain, also known as computer vision syndrome. Well, we all are familiar with this topic, where it describes a group of eye and a vision related problem that results from prolonged computer, laptop, e-reader, and cell phone use. Many individuals experience eye discomfort and vision problem when viewing digital screens for extended period. And research has found that around 75% of population working in front of digital screens for 6 to 9 hours daily complains of some ocular discomfort, which is considered to act like slow poison for ocular and visual comfort if not taken into consideration timely. Well, this has raised a question to us that how often has it been diagnosed and managed properly? And the answer is not satisfactory. Meanwhile, in our daily practice, we regularly get to interact with patients, indulge in prolonged digital exposure and their complication. But we often get addled by signs and symptoms presented by patient, misleading us to improper diagnosis. So to guide us and clear all our queries, we have today with us our speaking delegate, Mr. Gayathri Prabhu. Let's welcome Ms. Prabhu for today's session. And let me give you a short introduction about our today's speaker. Ms. Prabhu has completed her bachelor's in clinical optometry from JIMS, Chennai. Further, she completed her master's in clinical optometry from Salas University, and currently, Ms. Prabhu is working as an assistant professor at Ansel University as a visiting faculty. Moving forward, now on the behalf of Mero Eye Foundation team, again I would like to welcome Ms. Prabhu. Well, we feel privileged to have you, ma'am, with us today at this platform.
Thank you, Tabassum.
You may take over the session from here.
Yeah. Thank you, Tabassum, for the wonderful introduction. And thank you, Mero Eye, for giving me this opportunity to talk on digital eye strain. I hope I'm able to do justice to the topic. So let's see what are the main objectives of today's talk. So what we'll be basically doing is we'll be understanding the basics of digital eye strain today, the relationship between screen time, accommodation, and convergence. We'll also look at what are the tests we need to do for a comprehensive evaluation when it comes to a patient with computer vision syndrome. Also, the association of screen use with sleep pattern and its psychological implications, and how this excessive screen use affects the young kids and the kids in adolescent age groups. All right, so first, let me just give a explanation of the current situation. So earlier, we used to work a lot. Earlier, few years back, we used to work a lot on computers, mainly desktop monitors, and the smartphones, the e-readers, Kindle, your laptops. All these other devices were not there, and that is when the situation was a little different then. Currently, there are a lot of digital devices that are present. We are so addicted or hooked on to these devices that most of our waking time we are in front of some device or the other. It'll be either our smartphone or it'll be our smart TV. There are multiple options which are available, and we keep using them regularly. Now, our human eye is not meant to be doing so much of near work. So human eyes are typically meant for more of outdoor activity, looking at distance, and comparatively less of near work. So when we are doing so much of screen use or any kind of near work, that is putting excessive strain on the eyes, which finally relates to the ocular fatigue and the eye strain related problems. Now, there are studies which have been done. Some been done across the world, but the one that is done on American population on young adults, it suggests that almost 85 to 90% of our waking hours, we are in front of some screen or the other, which means if you are awake for say 10 to 12 hours a day, close to 9 hours or 8 to 9 or more than that, we are in front of some device or the other. Uh, in our current situation during the pandemic, most of us are home bound, and this increases more the use of screens. And especially, it is bad for the kids who are actually using a lot of screen these days. And even kids as young as 1.5 year old, they are also being subjected to a lot of screen use. Parents show them the screens, they show them the devices so as to pacify them or feed them. There are a lot of ways in which they try to what do you say, entertain the kids with help of screen. So that is again a bad trend which is coming in these days. So in this current situation or in the modern era scenario, if you see, more than computer vision syndrome, digital eye strain is a more apt word, because we are not binding ourselves to just the desktop monitors, which was the case few years back. These days there are mobile devices and we are on the go always with some device or the other. So basically, computer vision syndrome or your digital eye strain is a complex of eye and vision problems which are experienced by computer users. Now, let us look at some of the common complaints that these patients come with. So if you see, typically these patients come with complaints of eye strain or headache. So what do they say? They just come telling that the vision gets blurred after I start viewing the screen for some time. I end up getting eye strain or headaches after I look at computer or any kind of screen for say half a day, 3-4 hours a day. My eyes become itchy, there is burning sensation in the eyes. I feel the letters are getting jumbled up, they are getting double. So these are the common complaints with which the patient comes in. Now in this again, based on the complaints, we can actually divide these problems into various parts. And first, we'll be actually looking at the visual symptoms. Here, the symptoms are basically because of blurred vision. So they are vision related. So it will be either because of any kind of blurriness in the vision or because of your vergence or accommodative system. So here, the patient will tell that they need to blink to clear up the target, or they feel if they do excessive near work or excessive screen work, the eyes get tired, there is fatigue. They might complain that they need to squint or squeeze their eyes to see the target clearly. Or after a few hours of computer work, when they suddenly look at distance, the things are blurred. It takes a while for them to actually clear things up. So these are the various different kind of complaints the patient will come with. They might also complain of blurred vision for distance, which is a totally different thing. Now, when you're talking of blurred vision, it can be for distance or for near. So if again, it can further be divided as constant or intermittent kind. So if it is a constant blurred vision, either for distance or for near, then it could be because of an uncorrected refractive error. If it is for near, it could be basically because of presbyopia. And again, here I'm not considering the other pathological causes for blurred vision. So just limiting to the current topic. So now, if it is intermittent, then the blurriness, the temporary blurriness of vision might be when the person looks at the screen and then suddenly looks up. It will take a while for them to clear up. In those cases, it can be a problem because of accommodative facility or probably dryness as well. For near, if it is a constant blurred vision, obviously you need to think first, depending on the age, you need to think of presbyopia, or you could also consider accommodative insufficiency. If it is intermittent, you could consider both reduced amplitude, you could consider infacility, or again, dry eyes. Now, a certain group of people, they might also complain that the words get jumbled up or the words become double. Now, when they say double, first you need to clear up what they mean by double, whether it's actually double vision or whether they're just seeing a shadow, whether it's a they are talking of blurred vision as diplopia or double vision. But if it is diplopia, then primarily it is convergence insufficiency that we are considering, or the main cause for double vision. Now, how do we correct? How do we go about correcting these issues? Now, if it is a refractive error, generally practitioners have a tendency of not correcting minimal amounts of hyperopia and astigmatism. This is for normal population, but when you are talking of people who use screen for say more than 4 hours a day or even much more than that, then you need, and they are symptomatic, you need to consider prescribing even the minimal amount of hyperopia or your astigmatism. Even an astigmatism of 0.5 diopters should be prescribed for the patient. With respect to presbyopia, again, they should be carefully dispensed. You need to take into account the distances at which they use. So earlier, the computers were fixed at say 50, 70 centimeters, and it was easy. Now, with the mobiles, with the tablets, it's more difficult because people keep varying the distances. So you need to check the common, normal range at which they use, and then dispense them accordingly. Again, for providing correction, you have a lot of options these days. I'm just going into a brief. I'm not going into details on that. So you have single vision lenses for computer use. You can give them intermediate and near bifocals. You could give them trifocals. You could give them progressive addition lenses. There are something known as anti-fatigue lenses which could be prescribed. You have again contact lens options. You have multifocal lenses. So all of them can be considered depending on the need and requirements of the patient. So this was with respect to refractive error and their correction. Now let us look at the characters that we are looking on the screen. So if what is typically ideally said is that the character size on the screen should be at least 3 times the minimum threshold acuity, which means if I'm looking at a if the minimum required for me to identify a character on screen is say a times Roman 8 or 10, then I will have to use a 16 times Roman for me to comfortably view that target for a prolonged period of time. So when I increase the character size, I'm reducing the strain on my eyes to view the character. So I don't have to strain too much. I don't have to squint my eyes to actually view those characters that are there on the desktop. This is especially true when you're working, when you're using your mobiles, and when sometimes you use your tablets. So you need to make sure that you zoom in and then do prolonged reading in case you're doing a lot of reading. And with respect to contrast, it is good if you can have a good contrast between the characters and the background. So ideally recommended is something like black characters on a white background, but people like to use colors. They love color combinations, and hence they use a variety of color combinations. It is absolutely fine to use different color combinations, but just ensure that when you're using different kind of color combinations, the background is lighter and the characters are much dark, so that they stick out from the background and they can be identified easily. The reason is I find many people, including optometrists and including students of optometry, they use for their presentations, they use blue background with yellow characters, or they use black background with white or gray characters. Now here the background is much more brighter and much more prominent, and you have to actually look for the characters that are more important. So in this scenario, if you are reading that particular content for a long time, that is actually going to put a lot of strain onto your eyes. Now, the next factor is how you position the screen. So typically the screen should be 4 to 9 inches below your eyes. So this is again with respect to your desktop screens or your laptops, and with regard to your mobile devices, your smartphone or your tablets. These vary, but typically it is good if you can keep it in a downward gaze so that the eyes are more in a comfortable position. The reason, if you see the picture on my left top, if you see the pictures, you can notice that the person is looking up. The neck of the person is bent and they are looking up and working. Now, in this position, the person is more prone to having a lot of neck pain. That will also move down to back pain, and there is no rest for the hand, so they are going to have a pain in the arms as well if they work like this for a long time. Secondly, in this position, his eyes are wide open to look at the screen, so the exposed area is more, it's larger, and he or she will be more prone to a dry eye problem. The third thing with this position is there have been studies which indicate that when the gaze angle is increased, then the amount of accommodative effort that you need to put for the same task increases. So it increases by an amount of 0.5 to 0.75 diopters. So if you're constantly putting this excessive accommodative effort for the same task for, say, a long prolonged period of time, you're obviously going to get tired faster, and that results in ocular fatigue. So the positioning of your screen is very important. Now, moving on to its relationship with accommodation, convergence, how that plays a role. Again, here they have done studies among VDT users or screen users and non-screen users. So the screen users were people who were using screen for more than 4 hours a day, and the non-VDT users were people who were using it for less than 1 hour a day. So they gave them the same task of reading a content on a screen, and then they checked before and after. They checked the parameters, they checked their vergences, they checked their NPC, accommodation, a lag, everything was checked. All their binocular vision parameters were checked. And what they found was that among VDT users, people who were using screen for more than 4 hours a day on a regular basis, in them, they found that the NPC was reduced. There was an increase in lag of accommodation. The amplitude of accommodation was reduced little, and there was an increase in the amount of exophoria that was that was almost similar to the reduced convergence. So these changes in their accommodative and vergence parameters were temporary changes, and they were not permanent changes. So which means that once the person stops using these devices, these effects remain for, say, 1 hour or 2 hours, or beyond, not beyond that. It doesn't go beyond 2-3 hours of when the screen use is stopped. Now, another factor that is seen in them is a temporary myopic shift. So temporary myopic shift, here what they're trying to say is, since we are looking at the monitor, we are putting a sustained accommodative effort. There is increased innovation to the accommodative system, and we are doing that. We are stimulating the accommodation for longer period of time when we constantly look at the screen. And when that happens, that's increased accommodative effort. It takes a while to relax, even after we stop using the screen. So that state wherein the eyes remain in an accommodative position, that causes that temporary myopic shift. Again, this is temporary in nature. It goes off after 2-3 hours or after some time of rest. But if this remains like this for a constant period of time, then it can lead to permanent myopic changes or a myopic shift as well. Right, this is the same as what I had explained. Now let us look into what are the management options here. So if a person is having exophoria, if the person is having reduced positive fusional vergence or a low NPC value, there is a reduced vergence, entire vergence, there is a reduction in vergence amplitudes, then you can try giving them convergence training. Now, here again, with respect to esophoria and exophoria, 3 to 4 exophoria is considered normal for near. At the same time, for distance, it can be ortho, it can be slight exo, or even a little bit of ESO, uh, is still tolerable by normal patients on a regular basis. But this, it becomes intolerable, or it becomes a problem for them when they do this, when they see the screens for a long period of time, and that is when you require management. So if it is because of exophoria or reduced convergence amplitudes, then you'll have to give convergence training. The simplest exercises can be used. You could use Brock string, you could use your lifesaver cards, cat cards. It's better to avoid pencil push-ups, and it'll be good if you can either give lifesaver or fusion cards, or your Brock string. Then for if it is esophoria, wherein your divergence is less, you give divergence training. This again can be done using transparent lifesaver card or fusion cards, or it can be done using Brock string. Now, in certain esophoria cases, depending on the ACA ratio, you could consider giving little amount of plus. And once the divergence is improved, then you can try reducing it. Similarly, if you can't prescribe plus, then you could consider giving some amount of base out prisms just during the initial stages, and then wean out those prisms. But if a person has vertical phorias, then you need to prescribe them base up or base down, whatever is required. Now, moving on to the accommodative management. If a person has accommodative insufficiency when you test, or an ill-sustained accommodation when you test, here you need to improve their range of accommodation. You need to train them more with minus lenses, so that they are able to stimulate their accommodation. And depending on how symptomatic they are, how tolerant they are, or what is the stage at which they have come to you, presented to you, you can think of giving plus lenses initially during the start of the training. And once you are able to train them for up to say -6, then you could try slowly weaning them off or reducing the plus lenses that you have given, and just focus on improving their range of accommodation. After that, you also need to work on their facility. If the problem is with excess, if there is accommodative excess, the eye is in a state of accommodation always, you need to actually train them on plus, or the relaxing part of it. They need to relax their accommodation more. So you need to give them training on plus lenses more here. Again, here many a times it will be difficult for the patient to relax accommodation, so you may have to give added plus initially, and slowly you can reduce it. If it is a spasm, then you may have to use cycloplegia to that is completely relieve the spasm, and along with the vision therapy. In all these cases, along with the range of accommodation training, you also need to simultaneously work on their facility training. So in facility, basically they'll have problems when they shift focus from near to distance. It will take a while for their vision to get cleared up. So in those kind of patients, you can think of giving flipper exercises. You could, depending on the age of the patient, you could use somewhere between +or -1 to a +or -2. You could give hard chart exercises. These are the simplest ones. Or you could also do a accommodative rock kind of exercises. So these are the exercises that I have mentioned to you just now. In this, what I recommend is to my right, the ones that is a hard chart and the Brock string. So I generally would recommend, if you can give these simple exercises to most patients who come in, or most patients who come in and have a excessive screen use. So it is always better if you can use a preventive strategy than wait for patient to come with the complaint and then provide the therapy. So you know that most of these people will have some ocular issues which are related to accommodation and the virgin system. So keeping that in mind, it will always be good as a preventive measure. If for all patients who are coming in, you could suggest these exercises to help them get relieved of the eye strain problems. Now, with respect to hard chart, It is a simple thing. Patients can do it at their comfort. They can, whenever, even if they are simply sitting having coffee, they can use newspaper for near target, and look at a calendar or some photo or some target at the wall that is hung on the wall. So that way they can just shift focus, and that becomes a simple exercise for them to do. The same goes with rock string. So it is hardly going to take 5 minutes of their time on a daily basis, but if this can provide relief to them, there is nothing better than that. Now, as I said before, there is something known as a gadget-induced myopia, where they are trying to tell uh, that because of the sustained accommodative effort which is required, there is an increased accommodative innovations which set in, and which could remain like that for some time, even after the screen use is stopped, leading to a temporary myopic shift. But again, there have been multiple studies which relate myopia to the increased amount of near work, not necessarily the screen, but any kind of near work. So there are a lot of studies which have been done in across the globe on different populations, and in young kids, in young adults, they have done that, and they've shown that with increased amount of near work, there is a tendency to develop myopia, especially in children. uh, uh, when they are doing more of near work, which means simultaneously, if they're sitting at home, they are indoors mostly, so there is more near work when they're sitting at home, which means they are not exposed to the outdoor situations often. They are not playing much, or uh, which is required for relaxation of eyes, and which could eventually lead to increase in the myopic shift, or a trend towards the person becoming more myopic. So this is why the idea that you should limit screen use among kids, especially young kids, is very important, because there is a tendency for them to shift to move towards or drift towards myopia. Um, Now, with respect to ocular symptoms, this is mainly related to dry eyes. So it's because of the dry eye problem that they develop these symptoms. The patient typically complains that towards the end of the day, their eyes feel heavy. They feel there is watering, there is irritation. They feel there is a sticky discharge, or they feel there is something in their eyes which is causing trouble. They need to blink often to clear targets. So all of this is basically related to your dry eye problems. Now, if a person has dry eyes, there are 3-4 reasons for it. Number one is reduced blink rate. So we all know that under normal circumstances, when we are probably having a conversation with a friend, the amount of blinks we do per minute is somewhere between 17 to 23 blinks per minute. But the same blink rate when we are doing a task of concentration, be it reading or be it a screen use, then the blink rate reduces considerably. For some it reduces to say 10 to 12. For some it reduces even further, say around 4 to 6. So when the blink rate reduces, it obviously affects the tear film that is spread across the cornea, and that leads to dry eyes. Now, the second factor here is it is not only reduced, but people don't blink completely also. So, for the complete blink, you have to close your eyes completely and then open, which means the upper lid margin should touch the lower lid margin, and then you should open your eyes. That is a complete blink. Now, if there is an incomplete blink, again, it affects the uniform spread of the tear film on the cornea, which leads to dry eye problems. The third, as I mentioned before, if we are looking at a screen above at a higher gaze angle, that means we are exposing more amount of our eye to the environment or to the surroundings, and that is going to cause further increased evaporation of the tears, leading to dryness. The next factor is all of us are mostly working in air-conditioned environments, wherein both at office and at home there are air-conditioned ACs now, and that causes reduced humidity. Because of low humidity, there is faster evaporation of tears, and that leads to dryness. So these are the four reasons why we basically experience dryness. Now, because of the reduced blink rate and the incomplete blink rate, the problem is more bad for people who are contact lens users. So they'll complain with more severe problems. The second is females complain of dry eye problems more as opposed to males. This could be basically because of physiological changes, and that is the reason why female complain more. Now, uh, this is something that we had seen, the ocular symptoms when you have dry eyes. They could also complain of sensitivity to light. They could complain of blurred vision, which improves on blink. So this is something they will typically tell, and you need to make a note of it when you're taking history, that they feel that vision is getting blurred. They blink once or twice, then it becomes clear. These are typical complaints that the person with dry eye comes with. Now, the solution for this, you could give tear substitute, obvious solution, give tear substitutes so that the eyes get moist. You could teach the patient the importance of increased blink rate. You could make them understand the problems associated with an AC rooms, and ask them to change the vent direction, or keep a humidifier, increase the humidity. You could also even suggest them to just wash their face with clean water. You can ask them to correct their gaze angle, like if they are, even if they are using their mobiles, they're lying down and keeping their mobiles up, that also is an incorrect position that will cause more of dryness. So you could actually help them understand why the eyes are getting dry, and provide a solution accordingly. Here again, you should, when you're doing a slit lamp examination for these patients, you should also look at the lid margins. Make sure that the lid margins are normal and healthy. There is no meibomian gland dysfunction, or there's no meibomitis that you can see. There is no blepharitis that you can see, because those are again things which aggravate your dry eye problems. Now, additionally, you need to educate the patient to avoid smoking, to reduce their caffeine intake. It will include all sort of aerated drinks and your energy drinks as well, to increase their hydration levels. And also, if they are taking any medications that could possibly aggravate the dry eyes, then they could consider changing their dosage, or probably the medicine itself. Typically, the medicines, any kind of hormone replacement therapy, if the patient is going through, if they are on thyroid medications, if they are taking medicine for cancer treatment, or if they are on any psychotic drugs or psychotropic drugs. So those are the patients who will possibly will have some kind of a dry eye problem related to the medicine. Now, moving on to the next case, which will be the light sensitivity. Here, this is a problem basically if there is a bright light source that is there somewhere around the screen that we are using. So if you're sitting near a window, or if you're sitting just below a light source, then that will cause a huge bright area in the field of view, and that will make you strain your eyes to look at the whatever is it on the monitor that you're looking. And that is why that glare related problem will cause a significant eye strain on you. So if you look here, there is an overhead light, and that is causing excessive light to go into the person's eye, which is uh, causing trouble for him to view the characters on the screen. Similarly, over here, there is a bright window, which is creating the trouble. Now, many of you would have noticed, if you're doing WhatsApp video chats, if there is that light, the tube light or any light in the room, and if you're sitting just under it, then people are not able to see you properly, and they complain that there is some brightness and they're not able to actually view you clearly. So they then ask you to come in front of the light. So it's a similar concept, wherein if there is a bright light, then it is difficult for the person to view the characters. The next problem could be because of the flicker rate or the refresh rates. This was more of a problem with CRT monitors. It's much reduced now. The next is the ambient versus the screen illumination. Now, when we are looking at our screens, it's also important that the room illumination and the screen illumination are sort of at par. The room illumination should be slightly lesser than the screen, but not too dark as well. So this goes out to all the people who use their mobile phones at night, switching off the room lights. A lot of us have this habit of checking the final messages. We have the habit of seeing few videos just before we go off to sleep. Now, in those conditions, when you use your screen, you're basically straining your eyes a lot. Not only are you keeping your mobiles very close to the eye, if you look in that position, you're actually keeping it as close to 10 to 20 centimeters closer, and the room is dark and it's only that light which is affecting your eye. So that could lead to a considerable strain in that kind of illumination, which could possibly lead to a headache as well. So you need to make sure the room illumination is also good. Now, what is the solution for them? For these, so if there is an overhead light, just turn off the light. Simple solution. If there is a bright light source or there is a window, just put a curtain on the window. If you can't do any of these, just put a cap with a hood or a visor so that it blocks the excessive light. You could use anti-reflective screens, you could use glasses with ARC coating, anti-reflective screens for the monitor. If for lenses, you could use an ARC coat. Uh, Blue block lenses, though they suggest or they claim to reduce the fatigue that arises out of screen use, and they say that it improves the sleep pattern of the patient. But most of the studies don't give a conclusive result as to how effective these are to reduce the ocular fatigue. Now, with the next problem or the aspect that we'll be looking at is the musculoskeletal aspect. So here again, a lot of patients come with complaints of neck pain, headache, neck and back pain, which is increasing the tension headache that they come with. They'll have shoulder aches. They can complain of wrist pain or carpal tunnel syndrome. So these are mainly because of an uh, poor posture when they are working on the screen, or this could be because of the the ergonomics workstation requirements that they work in. So here, if you see in this, the person has to keep making a lot of neck movements to see the reading target. In this picture, in the adjacent picture, the person is bending too forward to look at the screen. Person is bending forward probably because the characters on the screen are too small. He's not able to see, and that is why he's bending too forward. Or probably it has become a habit that for us also, it is a habit that normally when we start with a mobile, we started at 30-40 centimeters. As we get engrossed, we keep getting our mobiles closer to the eyes. It could be one of those reasons that he's coming close. The next, if you see here, the person's leg is not rested properly on the ground. So the person has to place the legs firmly onto the ground. And the next, this is what I was talking of just now, that the person, while you sleep and you use your mobile phones, you generally tend to keep it very close to the eye, which is which is going to cause problems for you. Well, if you look here, and the reason for most of these musculoskeletal problems is the spectacle design. It could be because the person is using a bifocal. He is not very comfortable with the bifocal. He has to lift his chin or look up to look through the near area to work comfortably. That could be one reason. The second reason could be the reading material. It could be because the reading material is kept somewhere far, wherein the person has to make constant shifts in using his neck to view the reading material. Third, if you see here, the person is having some amount of footrest, but if you see the area beneath the desk, there is not enough movement for him to move his legs. So he is sitting in a cramped up position, which could lead to backaches, shoulder pain, etc. Now, next, if you see here, the person is leaning forward too much to look at the monitor, which could considerably increase the neck pain, back pain issues. Even in the next, the following picture, you can see that kids, they're using their screens, they're using their tablets, they're using their mobile phones. They keep it very close to the eye.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yeah, you able to hear
I
me?
think it will be better after and you can continue the presentation.
I didn't get you.
It will be better if you take a water and
Okay,
you
okay, fine. No,
can
I'm
hold
fine
for
now.
1 minute.
I'm fine now. I'm fine now. Thanks. Yeah. Shall I continue?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Um, so the this thing what I was talking of is basically kids, the way they use their screens. It's not only kids, even all adults, all of us are using the screen sometimes this way. But this puts a considerable amount of strain on the eyes, which could lead to headaches. It could lead to back pain issues, and it could lead to a lot of discomfort. Now, if you look at the ideal workstation that we need to have, this is the posture in which we need to sit to have a comfortable viewing experience. So your the angle between the arms should be 90, at the elbow should be 90 degrees. Your hip and the thighs should be again at 90 degrees. Your legs should be firmly placed at a footrest or on the ground, and there should be enough leg room to move your legs in case you need to move it occasionally. You can the screen should be placed below, and you should sit at least 50 to 70 centimeters away. This is this is when you're actually using your screens, desktop or your mobile. Now, moving on to comprehensive evaluation. I hope this was clear. So these are the basic things that you need to take care when you're sitting in front of a laptop, a desktop, or any kind of monitor. Now, if you look at the comprehensive evaluation that we need to do, first step is to take a very detailed history. So the detailed history you should make after the other symptoms, you make a note of the other symptoms. You need to note the duration of screen use, how much time they use any kind of screen, the kind of environment in which they're working, their psychosocial effects, whether they are having any psychological problems, their sleep pattern, their general health factors, etc., should be made a note of. The next thing is you need to check their vision refraction, make sure that their refraction is proper. They have you should do your binocular balancing, words for dot test. You should do a proper binocular vision assessment, which will include your cover test, NPC, fusional vergences, and vergence facility, and your stereopsis, of course. You should do all the tests for accommodative functions, which will include amplitude, facility, and lag of accommodation. You should do your saccades and pursuits. Again, this is very important because it has a considerable effect on your reading speed. And at the same time, it also affects the amount of strain you will put to read the characters on the laptop screen or laptop, whatever you're using. You have to do your color vision, your pupillary reflexes, slit lamp examination and IOP, your dry eye assessment, and the blink rate test. In dry eye tests, you should do your Shermer's and TBUT. So this will give you the quantitative as well as the qualitative assessment of tears. And finally, you should do your retina evaluation. So this will include a comprehensive evaluation for a person with digital eye strain. You should then closely talk to them about their work environment and the ergonomic factors that can affect their visual efficiency. So these are the tests which will test for the accommodative system. These are the normative values. I'm not going into the details of this. Again, these are the stepwise patterns that I just discussed. What all are the tests we need to do for a comprehensive evaluation? Now, the next important thing that I wanted to talk with regard to digital eye strain is its effect on sleep. Now, all of us know that all these screens, they emit some amount of blue light. Now, this blue light, it is actually very essential to keep track of the circadian rhythm, which is for the body to keep a track of when it is morning, when it is night. So when there is excessive light from these screens, it triggers the brain to remain alert. So when the brain is alert, it doesn't produce a lot of melatonin, which is required. Melatonin is a product that is formed from a mood hormone, happy hormone, or a neurotransmitter serotonin. So this melatonin, this is required to send signals to the muscles to relax and induce sleep. So when we use a lot of screen just before at night before we sleep, our brain is not able to relax and calm down itself and induce sleep. We basically become more and more alert. So that is why this affects the quality and the quantity of sleep that we get. So typically, there have been tests which have been done, and it indicates that if we are using any kind of screen just half an hour before we sleep, it can have adverse effects on our sleep pattern. It will increase the latency of sleep, which means even if you go to bed, it will take at least half an hour, 40 minutes for you to go to a sleeping mode. You will still be awake, your thoughts will be very much there. It reduces the sleep hours because you sleep late, you need to get up at the same time, so it reduces the the number of hours you get sleep. It increases the latency to wake up, which means you are you feel it difficult to wake up in the morning. You might keep the alarm for 7 o'clock, you might even wake up at 7, but you don't feel like getting out of bed. Other than laziness, this the other reason could be because of the adverse effect of screen use. Now, the other effect of it is you get a non-refreshing sleep. Even if you sleep for say 6 hours, you don't feel like you are refreshed after that 6 hours of sleep. And because your sleep is not complete, or you don't get that quality sleep, what happens is during the day when you're awake, you feel a little disoriented, you feel a little lethargic, you feel sleepy during the day, you don't have that kind of attention level or that kind of concentration level that you should have. So these are all the adverse effects of the screen time which has on your sleep pattern. Now, if the sleep pattern, it is obviously affects both the kids and the adults, but it is more detrimental to the kids who are using the screen time, because it will cause them to have poor diet, that they'll have diet changes, they'll not take food properly, or they'll take crave for excessive sugary diet. They'll have a sedentary behavior or a sedentary lifestyle because they don't feel fresh, they don't feel like going out, they don't feel like interacting. That will lead to inactivity and increased weight. Immunity reduces. Obviously, if you don't go outside more, your immunity reduces, your physical growth is affected. More importantly, this leads to a lot of mental health related issues, like depression, anxiety. You get prone to depression, anxiety, suicidal tendency, and even substance abuse. So this is another reason why sleep is very much important. For young kids, they need to get at least 10 to 12 hours of good sleep. And for adults, you need to at least get 6 to 8 hours of good sleep. Now, what is the solution? As I've been telling till now, the best solution is to prevent this from happening. So easiest is avoid screen time at least 1 to 2 hours before you sleep. This is for adults. If it is for kids, you need to avoid screen time after evening. Anytime after 5, 6, avoid the screen time. Keep all kind of digital devices outside the room or on silent mode. This is primarily because one, the signals, the Wi-Fi signals or the radiation from that of the phone itself is harmful for brain functioning or the development of brain. Secondly, if there is constant notification that keeps coming in from your mobile, there is that constant beep sound which comes, you will be tempted to check that last Instagram feed or check that last message on WhatsApp, and you will not get the quality sleep that you require. That beep sound keeps disturbing you. So it is best to keep it on silent mode. Now, since kids mostly follow their parents, so parents should act as role models and lead the way to kids for them to follow. Now, what are the psychosocial effects of this? So, how does excessive screen use affect your psychological health? So, for most adolescents and for most teenagers, it's actually the fear of missing out in their social circle. So, they are addicted to the social media, your Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, WhatsApp. They constantly update or feel the need to check others' updates because otherwise they feel left out in their peer group. So this is first and foremost reason. The second will actually be poor emotional regulation, wherein they're not able to control their anger, their irritation, their frustration. So that becomes a problem for them. They get attention deficit related issues. They especially this is for kids. Kids don't have that curiosity to know things more. They don't like, they don't want to maintain a social interaction with people. So these are the basic problems which affect the kids psychologically. The simple thing is, if you say a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old kid, if they're watching TV and you try to interrupt them, they will not like, you will probably have to pause or switch off the TV to make them listen to you. So this is a simple example that I'm giving, wherein the screen use or any kind of device use has an how it impacts your the way you handle situations. Again, people are more content with just using the screen, so they feel there is no need for social interaction. They find it more difficult to make friends. Now, the most important here is among adolescents, when they did a study, they found that people who used more screen were twice as likely to have received the diagnosis of a depression or an anxiety, or they were the people who were there was a requirement for them to undergo some kind of a therapy or a behavioral change. Now, what is the adverse effects that we see of the screen time on kids? Now, typically, as I said before, when kids spend more time on screen, it indicates that they're not actually doing a lot of outdoor activity. They're not playing as much as they should. They're not they're constantly just playing or doing any kind of near work only. So there is increased risk of development of myopia. That is number one and most important from our point of view. The second is they end up having behavioral issues. They throw more tantrums. They have lack of patience. They get angry more fast. There is lack of curiosity, as I said before. There is decreased social interaction. They are less interested in making new friends or even talking to the existing friends, because they are more interested in seeing that cartoon or playing that video game. Physical inactivity reduces. Now, again, physical inactivity is again linked to myopia, because it has been, they have done studies which have linked the intensity and the quality of light exposure that a person gets, a kid gets, that has been linked to myopia as well. So you have to get a certain amount of light to to actually have a normal developing eye and to not develop myopia. So physical inactivity could also be one of the risk factors or one of the environmental factors which causes your myopia development. Then they also have increased anxiety, depression. They are more prone to developmental delays and speech delays and hearing problems. The developmental and speech delays are more concerned with younger kids, say 1.5, 2 years kids who are using more of screen, who see a lot of those rhymes, a lot of those kids cartoons on mobiles. So for them, you see these more. It is also seen in adolescent or teen group. They have problems related to ADHD or concentration related problems. Now, as I said, the best strategy to be will be to avoid screen use here. As much as possible, try to bond with the kid, try to bond with another family member, um, play a game, do some exercises together, just read a book for them, or just have a conversation together, something which will take you off the screen and spend some quality time with a family. So the management, again, as I said, is primarily regulate yourself. It is self control and parental control for kids, wherein you use the screen use in moderation and you're not doing excessive off screen work. Now, the American Academy of Pediatrics, if you see, what they recommend is under 18 months, the kid should not be given any kind of media device. They are allowing video chatting though, which could be for a few minutes or so. For 18 to 24 months, again, it should be less than an hour. The same goes till up to 5 years of age. It is less than 1 hour per day, and parents should have an idea as to what is the content that they're viewing on the screen as well, and make sure they're sitting a little far away from screen. For 6 years and up, they've not put a cap on the amount of hours per day, but then they definitely ask you to keep a consistent check of what the kids are doing. The final take home message with this would be, as I said before, regulation, self-regulation, self-control is the key. With respect to eye, when you're doing, again, keep going for regular eye checkups. Do these simple eye exercises for facility and convergence on a regular basis. Have proper lighting wherever you're using your screen. Clean your screen properly, because if there is any dust particle on the screen, that itself could cause a reflection and that could hamper the viewing experience. Maintain a good distance, viewing distance. Don't get the mobiles close to your eyes. Maintain that 30-40 centimeters of distance. Reduce glare for whatever reason it is occurring. Use a good font size with which you can comfortably view. Blink frequently. Educate the patient to blink frequently. Wear your glasses when you're using any kind of screens. Next, the common rule, everyone knows it, it's a 20-20 rule, wherein for every 20 minutes, you need to take a break for 20 seconds to look away at a distance which is 20 feet away. So look at a distance, any object, look outside the window, or look just beyond across the room, somewhere where your eye muscles get relaxed. And in this, one more thing has to be included, that you need to blink for 10 to 20 times also during this break period. So this is about the digital eye strain, and these are the references. And thank you. Now I can take up questions.
Thank you, ma'am. It was a great session, and I'm sure it has cleared doubts of many of us regarding digital eye strain. Now, ma'am, before starting the discussion session, I want to make an announcement.
Tabassum, I'm not able to hear your voice clearly. Can you be a little louder?
Ma'am, before starting the discussion session, I want to announce something.
Tabassum,
Yeah.
your sound is so not clear. Can you please speak?
Hello.
Yeah, it's better now.
Yeah, and I'm saying, ma'am, thank you. It was a great session, and I'm sure it has cleared doubts of many of us. And before starting the discussion session, I want to have an announcement. On behalf of Mero Eye Foundation, I have an announcement for all of you. Soon, Mero Eye Foundation is going to conduct an ophthalmic case study series where interested candidates can present their invaluable records of their clinical practice. So, interested participants are kindly requested to submit their case to Mero Eye Foundation through mail so that Mero Eye team will revert them to with feasible dates. We believe that this program will expose the participants to real life situations, simplifying an approach to its management by passing an experience from one participant practitioners to another. So now moving towards our discussion session.
Can I stop sharing my screen?
Yeah, ma'am, you can.
Okay.
Till now, there is no any question, ma'am, in our comment section. We will be waiting for a few minutes so that attendees could get chance to drop their query.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Okay, ma'am. There is one question, so
Yeah.
I would like to read for you. Uh, so, what would be the best counseling for the school-going students or game-addicted students to avoid the digital devices?
I'm not able to hear you clearly. Can you come again with the question?
I Okay, I'll repeat again.
Yeah.
So, what? Yes, ma'am. What would be the counseling for the school-going student or game-addicted students to avoid the disease?
Basically, you want to know what kind of advice you can give the person who is addicted to games and who are
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
right.
yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
See, the best thing is you can give them an option. The simplest thing is you can try talking to them and explaining them that this is putting a considerable strain on their eyes, and that if they continue like this, they may possibly there would be a requirement for them to start wearing glasses. So this could be one of the possible options that you can consider telling the patient. So many people don't like wearing glasses, so that could possibly dissuade them from playing more on computers. And you could also talk to them how it affects them much beyond their eyes with respect to their sleep, their overall growth, and the other related factors. So that is how you can probably try educating them on the various adverse effects of excessive screen use and try to dissuade them from using it. At the end of the day, if it is a youngster, I think some amount of restriction from the parents is also essential, because now the parents, what happens is for adolescent kids or teenage kids, parents typically don't control. They are busy with their works. Kids are given phone, and kids do what they keep using their phone as per their choice. So that control is essential from the parental level for young kids. For adults, people should try to control themselves. They should you should try and make them understand the problems associated with excessive screen use, and after that it is the person's choice. Person has to actually develop that constraint. They should actually regulate it themselves.
Okay, thank
I
you
hope
for
I was
your
able to.
answer.
Yeah.
I have in my query, ma'am, like we used to talk about all of the psychological things that should be considered before examining the patient, and devices or in the context of digital identification. I found that the most of the bipolar disorder or having the cycle anxiety and again have control on themselves. So still we have the psychological counseling part to the patient. What
Ye-
would be the best? Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I see psychological counseling is very essential. So ideally, I would say it would be good, especially in schools, if we can conduct awareness programs, um, continuous awareness programs, which can be conducted on the adverse effects of the excessive screen use. That would actually help a lot.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. So, Tapsum, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, okay, you can refresh your YouTube channel, and if there is a one any continue the video.
Okay. Hmm. I don't see any question over here. Okay, ma'am. Thank you for a great presentation. You have explained it very well that I think everyone has cleared the queries which they have before this session. So there is no question for now. If we will get any question, we will contact you through Mero Eye team.
Sure, sure, sure.
And again, on behalf of Mero Eye Foundation team, I would like to thank Ms. Prabhu for the great session. Ma'am, we would love to hear from you about your today's experience with us.
Yeah, it was a wonderful experience. It's good to be speaking on such a platform. I think most of the attendees are basically students, I believe.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so it is a good it's a good platform. Basically, it's a good learning experience for the students. It's a good learning experience for us because it's a different platform, and the current situation we are getting to know more on the webinar teaching the mode of webinar teaching. We are getting accustomed to it now, so it was a wonderful experience.
Thank you, ma'am, for your review. Now, I
Yeah,
announce here the closure of this session. And once again, on behalf of Mero Eye team, I thank you, ma'am. We will be waiting to hear from you in the future.
sure,
Some more
sure.
new topics.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tabassum. Thank you so much, Meru, for giving me this opportunity.
And I would also like to thank all the attendees for their patience. And we will close the session here. And I wish all of you to stay safe, stay healthy. Thank
Yeah,
you.
okay. Thank you.